Today on Larry King Now, famous rocker Travis Barker on his new memoir.
Everything in the book from, you know, my drug addiction to the plane crash, everything had like a great outcome, you know, or as good as it could, whereas when you and I were first scheduled to talk, I wasn't in a good place.
On the status of Blink-182.
People grow apart, and when they do, you know, it's no longer healthy, just like any relationship.
Done, or?
No, we actually, our friend Matt Skiba, who plays in Alkaline Trio, filled in for Tom.
Plus, you've had your ups and downs in relationships. You're dating singer Rita Ora. How's that going? That's all next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our special guest is Travis Barker, incredible talent, one of the most well-respected artists in music. Travis has had an illustrious yet tumultuous career and life. Following a very public divorce, a drug addiction that lasted for years, a plane crash that almost took his life, the death of a good friend, and his eventual resurgence, Travis shares it all in his new memoir, Can I Say? Living Large, Cheating Death, and Drums, Drums, Drums. Why'd you write it?
I think after my plane crash, a lot of people wanted to talk to both Adam and I think the wound was still too new. Like, you couldn't tear the Band-Aid off it. It was like, I think it was impossible for either of us to talk about it without getting choked up or even it being even near an interview. It would have probably been us bawling our eyes out, you know?
You were both in a band together, right?
Well, yeah, we basically, it's a whole other part, but, you know, during a time when both of my bands broke up, Adam and I met each other, kind of came into each other's lives, and I had this idea to play with a DJ and basically cover every genre of music that he already spins, you know, that was playing. So we created this, like, drum DJ duo called TRVS DJ AM. So we were playing everywhere. We were playing, you know, MTV Video Music Awards a week before our plane crashed. We were, you know, touring and playing all these big shows you would normally play with the band.
And you were scheduled to come on our show after the crash.
Yeah.
You do it, I understand that. But he came on.
Yeah, I really, it was really difficult for me, you know, you know, first, I mean, when Adam was still alive, you know, 4 people didn't make it off the plane, like you know, 2 of my best friends, Chris and Che, and then the 2 pilots, and I was just in no shape to talk to anybody.
Why the book now?
Because I can talk about it now, and I think everything in the book from, you know, my drug addiction to the plane crash, everything had like a great outcome, you know, or as good as it could, whereas when you and I were first scheduled to talk, I wasn't in a good place. I couldn't sit here and go,
yeah, I understand.
I'm okay, you know, and everything's cool. I mean, I'm sober now, and I'm able to talk about it and see it as like a lesson learned.
Are you drumming?
Oh yeah, every day of my life. I mean, I was drumming maybe a week after I got out of the burn center. I was on a burn center for about 4 months. I had 27 surgeries. Like, the week I got out of the hospital, I sat in my backyard with a practice pad, you know, and I was playing the drums already. I had to make sure these were still working. You know, these were burnt really bad.
Drum hero was Buddy Rich?
Animal was my drum hero.
Everybody usually says Buddy Rich.
Yeah, it was Animal first. Like, I didn't see a physical, like, human drummer at 4 years old. I saw Animal because he was all over TV, wilding out, eating cymbals, going crazy. So that was my first introduction to a drummer. And then Buddy Rich came, and then, you know, Louis Bellson and Dennis Chambers and all these other great drummers. But Animal was that was my calling right there. That, like, opened my eyes.
Let's discuss the plane crash. You write about it. You won't get on a plane to this day, right?
No.
Your daughter predicted the crash?
My daughter was hysterically crying, like beyond.
Before you flew?
Yeah, before the day I left. And the day I left, I was like.
You'd flown a lot in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory with what I do. Sometimes we'd fly twice a day, you know,
she
depending
didn't want
on
you to fly that day.
Didn't want me to fly that day. Hysterically kept crying saying the roof's gonna come off. And I was like, what happened? Was there like an earthquake this morning? Did she see like something shake? Like what triggered this? And she just kept screaming it and crying it.
There had to be an investigation, everything, right?
Yeah, there was an investigation. I think there was a number of things like wrong with the plane. But I mean, initially what started everything was the landing gear popped. It sounded like gunshots. It sounded like someone was shooting a gun next to my head. And then the plane just spiraled out of control. It would come down.
What goes, everyone thinks about this. What goes through your mind? Did you have much time to think?
For me, it was my biggest fear already, and it was coming true.
You didn't like flying?
Oh, I hated flying. I had a dream when I was 19 I was going to die in a plane crash. Like, I got drunk, and I didn't really drink, and I told my manager that. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I think just from a young age, I saw my mom fly with me one time, and she was very upset. And it just was always something I didn't care to do.
How'd you live?
I don't know. I was blessed. I was blessed.
Were you thrown from the plane?
I had a seatbelt on, so I was one of the only people that was awake. Mind you, I was on a lot of drugs while being on the plane, and I just basically braced for impact every time. You know, the plane basically would go up in the air, and then it would crash down and hit the ground. And then it would come up, and then it would crash down and hit the ground. And every time we hit the ground, the flames and the smoke would get bigger. And, you know, right before, I mean, towards the, you know, before the last impact, the plane was completely on fire. We were a ball of fire in the sky. And then we actually came down to do the same thing, whatever was going on. I have no idea what was going on, you know, in the front area of the plane. We go down to swoop back up, and we hit an embankment. And I was honestly just waiting for lights out. I was just waiting for the next impact.
There's a picture of it in the book.
Yeah.
And you and Adam lived, right?
Yeah.
And pilots died and 2 other people.
Yeah.
And Adam, was he burnt too?
Well, when I jumped, I caught fire trying to go to the front of the plane to save my 2 friends and get to the pilots possibly, and I caught fire. I basically, I you know, get very, very scared, and I run, I grab Adam, he's passed out. I open the emergency exit, I jump into the jet fuel. So my whole body is engulfed in flames at this point. Adam sees me jump into the actual jets and become like, you know, fully on fire, and he jumps around and follows me, and he's literally on his phone calling our manager going, our plane crashed, like Travis is on fire, like he's cursing, he's yelling. And then as I'm running, you know, because the embankment was a highway, so someone in a car, like people are screaming, and they say, you know, just like what we learn in school, like stop, drop, and roll. And I hear it, and I do exactly that. And then the only place Adam got burnt is, you know, my feet were soaked in jet fuel. So he actually patted out my feet, and he ended up burning himself on his arm and a little bit on the back of his head.
And you had 3rd-degree burns, right?
I had 65% of my body burnt in 3rd-degree burns.
Up next, I'll ask Travis about his recent collaboration with the game and the status of Blink-182. Stay with us. It's all in this incredible book, Can I Say? Living Large, Cheating Death, and Drums, Drums, Drums. Why'd you call it Can I Say?
Can I Say is a tattoo I have that was the name of a Dag Nasty album and song, like this old hardcore punk rock band.
Why all the tattoos?
Why all the tattoos? When I was 16, or actually before that, when I was about 13, my dad said, the day you get a tattoo, I'm gonna kick your butt and I'm gonna kick you out of the house. Like, those are job stoppers, and you'll never get a normal job, and you'll have nothing to fall back on if you get tattoos. So that resonated through my head, and I actually did the exact opposite of what he told me, because I said there's only one thing I wanna do, and I wanna play the drums, and I wanna be a musician, and I don't wanna weigh out. I don't wanna weigh out. I wanna completely commit myself to this, whether I'm rich or poor. You know, my only goal was to play the drums, do something I love, and get paid enough money to eat and sleep somewhere. So I basically said that's one way of doing it. That's the way of canceling the plan B.
And you still get tattooed, right?
Yeah, I still get tattooed.
Obviously, during the recovery from the plane crash, you couldn't be tattooed.
No, actually, I lost every one of my tattoos from my legs, and they had to use all my skin off my back to bring skin to my legs. So I lost quite a bit of my tattoos. So I ended up re-tattooing my back and put a tribute to my family. Got portraits of my parents.
You know why you tattoo? What you like about it?
I mean, when I first started getting tattoos, it's different than it was now. It was like you were very rebellious and you were an outcast. Now it's like it's kind of normal to see tattoos, but I loved the way it looked. You know, I grew up seeing it and I just loved it. And once I figured out it didn't hurt, it was a wrap.
Are you collaborating with the game?
Yeah, I just worked on the game. Documentary 2, disc 2. I did a song called Outside. I produced a song called Outside with him and Little Easy and E40 and Marcus Black.
Are you able to work and do all these things if you won't fly?
Luckily, LA bred the game, so the game is right here from Los Angeles. And he was one of the artists that I've collaborated with in the past that was really supportive, when I was in the hospital after my crash. And we had a song back in the day called Dope Boys that was very popular for us. So when he said he was working on another album, he hit me up and I came over, It
was reported last spring that Blink-182 was going through a friendly divorce. Why did Tom leave the band?
I think people just grow apart.
Tom's been on this show.
Yeah.
He's a UFO freak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't really speak for him except that, people grow apart and when they do, it's no longer healthy, just like any relationship.
Done, or?
No, our friend Matt Skiba, who plays in Alkaline Trio, filled in for Tom because he quit like 2 weeks before a show that we had planned in the top of this year. And our friend Matt Skiba filled in and just did such a great job. He killed it. And we've been actually in the studio writing with him, and it's been amazing.
Play drums every day?
I try to. It's not a good day if I don't.
How long were you unable to play?
I mean, I was playing, like I said, when I got out of the hospital, and my hands were, you could still see, my hands were kind of messed up, but I didn't even have skin on my hands. They were scabs, and I was already playing. Because for me, it was like, to this day, if I don't play the drums, at least every other day or every day, I don't feel right. I feel
really
something's off, yeah. And then when I finally do play, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I got my rhythm, my rhythm, like as who I am is back.
The pain of burns is terrible, isn't it?
It's the most painful experience, obviously, I've ever been through.
After 9/11, I visited the burn center in New York, and there was one guy, I guess he might have died, the third-degree burns all over his body.
Yeah.
He was nude. They couldn't put a sheet on him.
Yeah. That's how I was. I was wrapped. I was pig cadaver was stapled to me, and I was completely nude, in the hospital. And then, when you're burnt, especially like how I was, or like the person you're talking about, they put you in this huge metal pan about 3 times the size of this table, and they scrub you with a metal brush every other day to get all the infection out. And graft, the procedures of getting grafts, I had 27 surgeries. It was an experience, and for me, unfortunately, I was medicating myself recreationally before the accident to where none of the medicines were working, so I'd wake up mid-surgery, in so much pain. But I can't say enough good things about the Grossman Burn Center. They took great care of me.
Where was that?
Right here in Los Angeles. Like, they're the best burn center in the country.
They fly you there from South Carolina?
I refused to fly, so I took a bus from Georgia to LA.
Oh, that's right, you wouldn't fly.
Yeah.
Coming up, who would Travis's dream collaboration be with? What's his favorite city to perform in? We'll play a game of You Only Knew. The book is Can I Say? Living Large, Cheating Death, and Drums, Drums, Drums. The guest is Travis Barker. We'll be right back. The guest, Travis Barker. The book is Can I Say? And it's a catharsis, isn't it, to let it all out?
Yeah.
You've had your ups and downs in relationships. You're dating singer Rita Ora. How's that going?
She's actually just a friend.
Oh, you're not dating?
Just enjoying each other, She's awesome. I met her a couple weeks ago at like a performance that I did at Power 106. and we've just been friends ever since.
Halloween coming up. Are you a fan of that holiday?
It's my favorite holiday out of every holiday. It's probably like my family and I's like better than Christmas. I don't know, we just like it. It's like, I think we're a rock and roll family that has skeletons and skulls everywhere.
Trick-or-treating?
Yeah, we go to trick-or-treating, we go to Hollywood Horror Nights at Universal, we go to Knott's Scary Farm. We love what can't you not like about Halloween? It's great, you know?
My kids love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Quick game of If You Only Knew. I just throw some questions at you, Travis.
Okay.
Remember the first girl you ever kissed?
Yes.
What was her name?
Her name was Jamie Smith.
And where was that?
It was at South Tamarind Elementary School in Fontana, where I grew up.
California?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was like 11 or something.
What's your favorite city to perform in?
I love London. I really love London.
Which do you prefer, performing or producing?
Both. I can't live without either one. I need a little bit of both. You know, once you're in the studio for 3 months, you can't wait to go on tour. Once you're on tour for 3 months, you can't wait to get home and record.
What made you pick up drums?
I was 4 years old, and I was just banging on pots and pans, and that led to my mother and father buying me an animal drum kit, and then I even played that more. You know, they didn't know if it was just a phase, and then my mom said, like, he's gonna be a drummer.
Artists or artists you dream of collaborating with?
I've been so fortunate to collaborate with everyone. You know, I did a hip-hop album a couple years ago where I, you know, played with everyone, you know, from like Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine to like RZA from Wu-Tang Clan, Lil Wayne.
You ever lead a band?
Will I ever lead a band? I always say, like, when I'm done touring and I'm done playing this crazy, you know, rebellious, you know, fast music or whatever, I'd love to play, like, you know, on the Tonight Show or just have like a gig like that where I get to play jazz. I grew up playing jazz, so I always see it full circle.
Buddy Rich led bands, Gene Krupa led bands.
Yeah, I think it'll come full circle. You know, I started playing jazz. That's where I learned how to read music. So I feel like I'll go back.
Something that always makes you laugh.
Something that always makes me laugh. I guess like stuff like funniest home videos. Like, that's undeniable.
Something that ticks you off.
Cops that aren't cool.
A new drummer that's impressed you.
My son, Landon Barker.
He's 12?
Yeah, he's gonna be a beast. He's really, really good.
Music on your iPod that would surprise people.
Probably my kids' music. When they like download something on my phone that they like to rock to, and people look at my phone and go, "Why do you have this on there?"
Wildest fan encounter.
I had a fan one time on the way to a signing that handcuffed herself to me. What? That was the scariest thing, because I was like, I mean, that's pretty like bold, you know?
No kidding.
So yeah, like eventually I tried to like just make the situation as calm as possible, and I walked her into the signing, and then our security that was with us, you know, they were like, "Look, this isn't funny. Like,
you had to get the key.
Where's the key? This isn't cool." So, you know, she sat down on the table with me where I was gonna, you know, begin signing it. Finally, her friend came over with the handcuff, but I gave it to her. I was like, I had to give her props. Like, that's pretty awesome. Like, I'm gonna come up and handcuff myself to you.
What's your most cherished memory?
Probably like growing up, like going to drum lessons with my mom. Like, I talk about it in my book. My mom was like so supportive with the drums. My mom and my dad. My dad took me to every drum lesson, and my mom would sit in them. And when she passed away when I was like 12, she was pretty much as good as a drummer as I was, because she was at every lesson. She was like 41 or 42.
Cancer?
Yeah.
Do you ever, in your deepest thoughts, think you might fly again?
Never say never. You know, if it's you know, my problem was I used to medicate myself, you know, just to get on the plane, medicate myself to stay on the plane, then medicate myself to stay in whatever country I was away from my kids, you know, at one point. So I would have to do it under the circumstances that I'm mentally ready to do it without numbing myself to get on there, you know?
So you don't travel anywhere?
No, I do. I bought a tour bus the year after my accident, and I take the Queen Mary 2 to Europe. So I take the Queen Mary 2 from New York to London. It's awesome.
Wow. Was it 5 days?
9 days.
9 days.
Yeah.
To perform in Europe.
Yep. But it's kind of nice because leading up to tour, I get to like run an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. I get to play drums 2 hours a day. So by the time tour starts, I'm beyond ready, you know?
But that trip, do you ever make it in winter?
Oh, I did make the mistake of coming back in winter one time.
Don't you get a lot of bouncing?
We hit 30-foot waves and 170-mile-per-hour winds. And I'll never, ever do the transatlantic crossing in winter again. That was enough for me. I was like...
Did it make you think of the plane crash?
Yeah, I did. I mean, anything made me think of it for quite a while, for years, you know. Riding in the bus, I would constantly be in the back of the bus, like, kind of like waiting for impact, you know. I had a lot of issues with just traveling. I was scared, you know, of any means of traveling. But I always say, you know, I tell my kids, you know, I want them to see me overcome not flying. So I've told both of them, you know, my son Landon in Alabama, like, the day you guys want to fly, I'm on a plane, you know, so.
Are they afraid to fly?
Yeah.
Next up, we'll wrap things up with fan questions from social media for Travis Barker. The book, Can I Say? Living Large, Cheating Death, and Drums, Drums, Drums. We'll be right back. Back with Travis Barker. You recently said you had eyes for Kim Kardashian.
No, it's talking about in a part of my book where I first met Kim, and I was with her friend, but, you know, the entire time I was like low-key, couldn't keep my eyes off Kim, you know. And this is before really anybody knew who she was, but I mean, she's a sweetheart. I mean, it goes to show, like, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I was right on point because, you know.
Yeah, you were ahead of your time.
Yeah.
You also dated Paris Hilton, huh?
Yeah.
How do you keep in touch with her?
I haven't seen her in quite a while. No, but yeah, I mean, I'm still friendly with her.
Any new music coming out, touring?
Yes, I have a single out right now called 100 that I produced, and I have a residency at Hyde Bellagio in Vegas where I like play drums and do like a scratch routine. I play like an old school New Orleans like jazz cocktail kit. So I have that, and I'm about to go on tour with a band called Anti-Mask, which is Cedric and Omar from Mars Volta.
Always love playing, huh?
Oh, it keeps me sane, man. It's my therapy, you know.
We have some questions from social media. Alex Flores on Facebook. Would you do a drum off with Neil Peart?
Neil Peart.
Neil Peart, I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah. I grew up on him. I always loved Neil Peart. He was one of the greatest drummers ever.
What's a drum off?
A drum off is like, it's like when, I mean, Buddy and Gene had a drum off back in the day where you just trade, yeah, you trade fours, but it's usually friendly, you know, like drummers aren't really out to cut each other's throat.
That's Steffo47 on Twitter. What is your take on electronic and computer-based drums?
I love it. There's a whole science to it. I mean, on a lot of the hip-hop stuff I produce, some of it is using, you know, electronic sounds, but I usually prefer to not quantize them, which means like put them on a grid and make them very stiff. But there's definitely a science and a talent to that. It's not like me being a drummer, I would throw shade to it. I really respect the great programmers out there.
How do you stay on top with so much technology coming out?
Adapt.
Jake Salas on Twitter. Ask him about the new band he's touring with, Anti-Mask, is that it?
Yeah.
And what brought the group together?
Cedric and Omar from Mars Volta, they had a new group called Anti-Mask, and I was really, really good friends with Cedric's wife, and one day she had, you know, emailed me and said, hey, Cedric wants to talk to you. You know, he wants to call you, is that okay? And I said, yeah. And I was always a big fan from afar, you know, we never worked together, but I always loved and respected what they did. And then, you know, they asked me, you know, can we play you some music and would you be interested in recording with us? And I heard the music and it was ridiculously good, like jaw-dropping good. And then the next week they came out, we recorded all the drums in like a day and a half. And now I'm gonna go support like their first tour with them.
You play hard rock and everything?
I play everything. I play like hip hop, hard rock, punk rock, metal, anything. I grew up playing everything. At one point, when I set out and I said, look, I want to play the drums for a living, I was basically like a drum escort. Like if you needed a drummer, I'd play with you if you pay me something. So it was kind of like I learned how to play everything.
Is heavy metal music?
Absolutely. I mean, that's like saying punk rock's not music either. It is. And once you go in and you study that genre, you figure out how different a lot of it is from each other. But I grew up on everything. You know, I grew up loving like bands like Slayer and Pantera, and then, you know, at the same time listening to stuff my dad was listening to, like Buck Owens, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson. My dad still to this day, Willie Nelson is like, he doesn't get any better. So I grew up on everything.
At Caitlin TB on Twitter, who inspires you the most in regard to music?
I think listening and paying attention to so many different genres of music. It's like I have trouble choosing what genre I love the most. It's so, all of it's so great, and then, you know, just the creative process. I love.
Like Sinatra?
I do. I love Sinatra.
Sasha St. Pierre on Facebook. How was it to perform with Run with Jules at FYF?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, Run the Jewels is the best rap group, I think, presently to this day, right now. Like, I played with them at FYF, this song that I recorded with them.
FYF?
It's a festival in Los Angeles. So, yeah, we have a song called All Due Respect. And anytime they play, you know, anywhere close by, I go out and I'm like a surprise guest. But they're just an amazing group.
At Vlog Epicness on Twitter, please ask him if he'll be in my new band.
Sure.
At Scatter NSPE on Twitter, what differentiates drums to that of any other instrument?
I think there's drums in everything. There's drums in every type of music. There's drums in, you know, I turn on the turn signal and I hear, you know, to everyone else they hear, chick, chick, chick. I hear, you know, I start drumming immediately, any rhythm I hear. So it's like drums are everywhere to me. It could be anything. It could be like.
You play the bongos too?
Yeah, I played the bongos, played everything. So everything relates back to drumming to me.
You're a great guest.
It was great talking to you. Thank you for having me.
Finally, we did it.
Yes.
I want to thank my guest. He's the great Travis Barker. And remember, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things, and I'll see you next time. The book is Can I Say? Living Large, Cheating Death, and Drums, Drums, Drums.